What's going on, YouTube? Reezonotticz coming back at you once again, and we're doing part 3 of Reezonz's most immersive video games of all time series. Part 1, we went through the Nintendo Wii's library of immersive masterpieces. Part 2, we started off on the N64, and it's only common sense that part 3 would just pick up where part 2 left off, continuing through the N64 library, because there's so many games in the Nintendo 64's game library that are immersive classics, just immersive masterpieces that draw you into the world that the game designers wanted you to experience. So we left off the last video with Star Wars Battle for Naboo and Rogue Squadron. So we're gonna pick it up where we left off. Coming up next, we got Star Fox 64. Now this game, this game was so immersive, and it wasn't just because the graphics were fully 3D, were beautifully rendered, were animated smoothly, were crisp, controls were tight. It wasn't just because Fox, Peppy, and Slippy actually spoke English or Japanese or some human language to you this time, as opposed to the gibberish they spoke in the Super Nintendo version. All of that was great, and all of that was immersive, but that combined with the fact that this game came bundled with the first ever revolutionary for the time Rumble Pack peripheral, which you popped into the back of your controller, and once you did that, you got to feel, for the first time ever, the gamer got to feel what he or she was seeing on the screen in real time. If you got blasted on the screen, you felt it at that moment in your hands, as a controller would give feedback, it would vibrate, and you know, depending on what was going on the screen, it would vibrate harder or softer, and it was just revolutionary. Suffice it to say, like everything else, Sony went and bit off of Nintendo. A couple months later, made a DualShock analog controller with you know, their own built-in force feedback. Never would have thought of it if it wasn't for Nintendo bringing it out. But anyways, that's a different story. But that's what made this game so immersive. The 3D graphics, especially when you were fighting a boss and it went into all range mode and you were no longer on rails like, you know, traditional Star Fox. All of a sudden you had full three-dimensional roaming capabilities of the entire area. That plus the Rumble Pack and the graphics, man, on Star Fox 64 was just epic scene. You know what I'm saying? So that's that. Next we got Snowboard Kids and Snowboard Kids 2, the sequel, which I do have. As I said in another video, I'm not going to have it physically up here with me, because if I had all the sequels to all the games I have up here, I'd be drowning in games. So, Snowboard Kids and Snowboard Kids 2. And a fun, classic, sleeper hit of a little racer, combat racer, just like Mario Kart, but on snowboards with cutesy little characters and insane power-ups. Now, what's so immersive to me about this game was a combination, like so many times you've heard me say before, of the music and the way the tracks were designed. You got crazy shortcuts. You got shortcuts that split left and right, shortcuts that split up and down, especially in the second game. You got this fun little just poppy soundtrack that just sticks to your head. Yeah, I used to find myself humming this stuff at school the next day after I played it all night the night before when I was in middle school. You know, it's and the way that, like I said, the way the tracks are designed, the animations, the art style, it was just very well done for a racer, and I think both this one and the sequel deserve my nod in that arena. Next, oh my goodness, I ain't even gonna say this. No, yes I am. I always say it. My favorite game of all time, Pilotwings 64. This game, to me, it is the pinnacle, right along Zelda, the pinnacle of immersiveness, of the art of illusion, the art of taking the gamer and his mind captive from that couch where he's sitting there playing that game and bringing him into your world to a point where he forgets he's on that couch and he thinks he's literally in your world and he's having a ball because of it. That's what this game does. This game was so ahead of its time graphically. Just the horsepower that this game showed off in graphics and technology. The depth, there was depth perception. There was three-dimensional, 360 degrees up and down, left and right, all around 3D graphics. You could go anywhere, do anything. There were no limitations in this game. They even, for the time being, for the limitations of this technology, back then, they even had a trick to where if you wanted to fly away from the island that you were at out to sea as far as you want, you didn't hit an imaginary wall. Eventually that island would fade into the distance and come right back around. So it just felt like you were going around, but it didn't feel like you were, it felt like you were going in circles, but you weren't crashing into no imaginary walls like you do in some of today's games all this time later. This game was so ahead of its time. Three-dimensional, fun mission-based objectives, but you didn't have to do the missions if you didn't want to. You could just go exploring, and you would find so many Easter eggs all over the place, man. Such a great game with the 3D graphics, the music, that Nintendo touch, It's just a great flight simulator that really puts you in that world, man. Especially when you go to Little States, which is an island replica, a smaller miniature replica of the United States. And you got the Grand Canyon, Mount Rushmore, Las Vegas, New York, the Space Needle, everything is there. It's awesome. Next, Ogre Battle 64, one of the only RPGs on the N64 and the best RPG on the N64. This game really drew you in because RPGs usually do that, but it did it with the storyline, and it did it with the overworld map view, how you could, you know, pitch your tents and have your troops and split them up and have your parties go this way and that way and try to circle around the enemy, and then when the battles would kick off, you'd be there in real time, and just the way the game was designed as far as the levels, the colors, the animation, the world design, very well done. Gets my nod, and I don't even like RPGs, so that tells you something. Next, Goemon Mystical Ninja on the N64. I do have the sequel, but I am not including the sequel in this category. The original, Part 1. This game did such a great job of taking you to a three-dimensional fantasy style rural Japan. From Mount Fuji to some of the plains to Okinawa, you go everywhere, man. And it's just beautifully done in 3D, gorgeous sunsets, gorgeous graphics, landscapes, so much space, fun, quirky, little weird story that if you can get around the quirkiness, like I said before, you're going to find a gem here. But just as far as immersiveness, it really drew you in to Japan and to where the storyline was taking place. Beautifully designed. Next, WCW NWO Revenge. Now with this, I include WWE No Mercy and WWE WrestleMania 2000 and WCW NWO World Tour. Those are the best wrestling games of all time, all on the N64. And immersiveness, oh, forget about it. Or for my Spanish-speaking peeps, olvídate. Yeah, this game made you feel like you were in the arena, especially for the time. Fans holding up signs, weapons, run-ins, interference, tag teams, cage matches, everything, bro, you're talking about each one of these games had a roster of about 45 wrestlers. From WCW, WWE, everybody, man. It was amazing. Next, Wave Race 64. The water physics, the graphics, the music, just the clarity in the graphics, the speed of the animation, and again, I'll say it again, the water physics, man. The way the water affected and looked and moved the gameplay, it's just amazing. This is one of those games that makes you feel like you're really on a Kawasaki jet ski, just careening down a straightaway, you know, racing against four other people. Next, Turok Dinosaur Hunter. First-person shooter. Almost as good as GoldenEye in my opinion, but GoldenEye, I guess, you know, just a half an inch over. But Turok Dinosaur Hunter, man, this game made you feel like you were in the Lost Land. You know, fog and smog and mist and trees and cliffs, and you had all these outrageous weapons, and you were being hunted by these hybrid dinosaurs, robots, humans. Everybody thought was coming at you, and it was just in 3D. Little details make a game immersive to me. Like in this one, I remember when you would go in the water and swim. If you stayed down there if you went underwater and came back up, you would just hear him when he comes out of the water. But if you stayed down there for a long time and you were starting to suffocate, when you finally came out, you would be coughing up water. You know, little details like that made it so realistic. Plus the world design and the music and the weapons, man, and just the way the game looked was beautiful. And I'm including the sequel, Turok 2 Seeds of Evil, which is just amazing. Next, Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. This game really draws you in because of the scope and the expanse of the levels. I mean, one level, Gal Spaceport, if, for example, is a level that will take you 30 minutes to play through. And that's being a pro, like me. Yo, it's amazing. Graphically, the storyline, the music, Star Wars characters, everything is there, man. It really draws you into that world. And last but not least, oh my goodness, Mario 64. Taking the beloved Mushroom Kingdom that we have loved in 2D for generations, for years, into full 360-degree 3D graphics. Mario has never looked or moved or sounded better. Everything in this game, every level, there is not one world in this game that is designed bad. Just amazing, man. So those are my games that I have picked for the N64 as the most immersive games of all time. Please tune in for part 4, where we're going to be going through the Nintendo GameCube's most immersive games of all time. And I hope you guys have enjoyed. I wish I could speak more on this, but I'm trying to keep my videos to 10 minutes, man. So, you know, if you all want reviews on any of these games that you've seen and more in depth, and me to talk about them longer and get more deep into them, please let me know, comment, and subscribe. God bless y'all. Stay gaming.